Remembering Christmas, written by Dora Ballhorn, narrated by Ray Stool. I've been asked to write a short article about my early days in Alberta, so I will take you back about 90 years and tell you about one of my first Christmases in what was then a new country. My family consisted of my father and my mother, 2 sisters, and myself. We were strangers in a strange land, and everything was strange around us. As I grew older, I wondered what my parents thought about it all. We children took everything for granted, while they made the best of everything for our sakes. In our little town where we lived, there was no electricity available to light up the streets and decorate the store windows for Christmas. But I am sure we all can remember the lovely music the sleigh bells made as the horse-drawn sleighs and cutters drove away from the hitching posts or tie rails on the street. It was beautiful. Where have all those sleigh bells gone? One of the most important things we children took part in was getting our Christmas tree from the woods, several miles away. My father would sharpen his axe on the grindstone for the occasion. I can remember the many times I would turn the stone round and round while he sharpened sickles and axes. When the axe was ready, he would hitch up our only horses, Dick and Dan, to the bobsleigh. Big and little piled into the sleigh, and away we went. Horses prancing, sleigh bells ringing, children laughing. If it was cold, we covered up with horse blankets. Horse blankets were something everyone had in those days. The trail meandered here and there and skirted around a slough where a dozen muskrat houses raised their roofs above the ice and snow. The bare water willows looked almost purple in the winter light. When we arrived at the woods, Dad tied up the team, blanketed them, and we children scrambled out into the snow. The evergreens perfumed the crisp winter air, and snow glittered on their branches. That was the days when we wore long underwear and tucked them into our heavy black stockings. As we grew older, how we hated it. No matter how heavy the stockings were, they became soaking wet before very long, unless it was very cold. It took us some time to decide on the tree we wanted, as there were so many, and it seemed we always chose one that was too tall. So Dad came to the rescue, and we decided on a beautiful bushy one. We didn't cut down more than one, as my dad said we must never waste, as it takes a long time to grow a tree like the one we had chosen. There was nearly always a chickadee or two flittering among the branches, singing out its cheerful song. We even heard the drumming of a wood partridge away off in the distance. And over there, near some bushes, sat sly Mr. Coyote, watching us and no doubt wondering what we were doing in his world. What a day that was to remember. I can still smell the fragrance of the spruce. The green of the trees was very dark against the white snow. When we arrived home, Dad took over and fixed the tree solidly in a box, and we children made the decorations. What would people say today if they had to use those same kind of simple ornaments for the Christmas trees? We strung yards and yards of popcorn. We had brought it with us from the United States, and rose hips. We made paper loops and joined them together with flour and water paste. We even manufactured a star and an angel, and our mother finished the whole thing by fastening on candle holders to the branches and putting in small red, green, pink, and blue candles. We always made more of Christmas Eve than Christmas Day, for that night the babe was born in a manger, and the shepherds brought their gifts from afar. It was sacred, and we thought of it that way. Our mother prepared a special supper. I can't remember exactly the things we had to eat, but the flavor and the taste is still with me as I remember today. I know the table was laid with our best linen, china, and silver. I have a few pieces of china in my cupboard today that were used on that table so many years ago. The whole family were dressed in their best clothes, and we children were really sparkling. I remember my mother's dress was floor-length and made of plain dark material. Her collar was high and must have been very uncomfortable. Her hair was piled high on her head with heavy wire hairpins to hold it in place. For more special occasions she would use celluloid pins. We would eat hurriedly as we listened for sounds to come from our sitting room, where our tree stood waiting for Santa. My dad had been in to open a window for him to enter. When we went into the room, Santa had gone, and my mother told us that he was probably in a hurry, as he had to visit many children everywhere. In a corner of the little room stood our beautiful tree in all its glory, the candles lit and flickering in the dimly lighted room. I have seen many Christmas trees since then, simply gorgeous ones, but none can compare to that first tree we had in Alberta, when money was scarce and our family strangers in a strange land. The wood in the wood stove crackled and sputtered while our father, as master of ceremonies, distributed the gifts. Those simple little symbols of love. For my mother 3 yellow celluloid hairpins, and for we 3 little girls pink and red and blue hair ribbons, and a homemade doll for each of us. How I wish I had those dolls now. I would be so proud to give them to my grandchildren. For our dad, what do you think we gave him? It was a little cotton bag with a drawstring at the top and a label that read, "Old Chum Smoking Tobacco." Then the parcels from the United States were opened, and they held many surprises and useful gifts. Dad read the letters that had arrived from Germany, telling the news of his family, and I seem to remember seeing something splash from his eyes to the paper as he read. We wished we could have all known our grandparents across the ocean. Dear Dad never saw his parents again and never went back to his native land. After our gifts had been distributed and admired, we had a short program. Each child, no matter how small, contributed something, and then Dad told us the Christmas story. He did not read it from the Bible, because he could tell the story perfectly. It has been said the folks from the old country knew their Bibles, and I know it was true of my dad. Our mother finished the evening by playing carols and old-time melodies on her accordion. How happy we all were, perfectly satisfied with everything. We had so little then, now it seems we have too much. The fire in the stove was getting low, although the flames could still be seen through the isinglass of the door. The littlest sister had fallen asleep on the floor beside the tree, her doll and hair ribbon tightly clasped in her arms. Before we retired, Mother pulled up the shade on the east window, and we all gathered around to look out on the wondrous night stars. And brighter than the other stars was the star in the east that had guided the wise men through the ages. We pray, Lord, that when the pageantry is finished and the carolers depart, when the trees are untrimmed and the festive laughter ceases, we shall all remember why we have Christmas. God bless.